It really is one of the best feelings in the whole wide world. Duke basketball is back. We got to see it. Countdown to Craziness was a big success. Everything we saw, we talk about on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thanks so much for being here with us on Monday, October 7th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop devoted to everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. On today's show, we're focused a whole lot on Duke men's basketball as Countdown to Craziness has come and gone. It was a major success. We're going to talk about the key storylines, some stats, some player observations, and so much more. We've also got a Mailbag Monday that was sent in, where we'll answer some of your questions regarding Countdown to Craziness and so much more with our good pal Raul Clement from the Devil's Den podcast. Good to have him back on the show here today with us. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like this video on YouTube to watch the show each and every day. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share this podcast with your friends, as your support means just so much to us. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. To begin today's show, as we said, he's back. It's Raul Clement from the Devil's Den podcast, who was in the house. He was inside Cameron Indoor Stadium for the festivities. And Raul, I said it in the open there, but there are very few greater feelings than Duke basketball being back in our lives, and we finally got to see it this past weekend, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, all off season, everything's hypothetical, and you're just kind of making up rosters and lineups in your head and just, imagining what the players can do on the court. And now we got at least a little taste, even if it's not a real game scenario.
Without a doubt, we get to see these players wear the Duke uniforms for the first time. Player introductions is what everybody wants to see. After the fact, it felt like every basketball outlet that there was posting highlights from individual players themselves and the performances that they had. So Duke had the blue-white game, individual standouts. If you were to kind of look at big picture, what's your big takeaway from the festivities? Is it an individual that stood out, or is it a bigger team collective thing? Like, what do you think of when you look back to the basketball that was played?
If I had to pick one player, it would be Caleb Foster. I think he was the leading scorer with 16 points, and I thought he was really aggressive and was great at kind of generating looks in the half court, getting to the rim. Drew, I think, 3 fouls, made 3 layups, a couple threes, and just looked really assertive, had some nice passes as well. But I thought really everyone looked pretty good, especially the guards, and we were getting up a lot of threes, and that was appealing to me kind of as an analytics nerd. So those were my big takeaways.
Yeah, the three-point shot is something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later today. It felt like everybody was able to knock it down from the outside. Duke plays, again, the 2 games is how they set that up for Countdown to Craziness. Both games were played there on the floor at Cameron Indoor, 2 10-minute games taking place. In one of them, Caleb Foster had just 2 points, but then he's able to put together a 14-point effort, which totals to 16 points on the night. He's rocking the headband, which we weren't used to seeing him wear last season, Raul. And I think Duke is going to go as he goes this year when you look at what they're trying to do offensively.
Totally agree. I mean, as great a player as Tyrese Proctor has been for us, he's not necessarily the best at kind of creating off the dribble, and he's more of a 3-and-D guard, in fact. And I think Caleb just has more ability to put pressure on the defense.
And hopefully the pressure is constant throughout the entire game that this Duke team's able to keep going. So talking about the Blue Devils in game 1, it was Isaiah Evans who led the white team with 8 points. Cooper Flagg led the team in game 2 with 9 points. For Team Blue, Con Knippel scored 8 in that first game before Caleb Foster exploded for 14 points, 5 of 5 shooting from the floor in that second game. Cooper Flagg is the big story that everybody's been talking about in regards to Duke basketball this entire offseason. Raul, when you sit there and you evaluate what you saw from him on Friday, what stands out?
Yeah, I was shocked to see, how many points he ended up with because it felt like he was quiet. But then you look and he's taken 12 shots, went 6 of 12. I forget if he had 13 points or something like that.
Yeah.
And, what to me, what jumped out was his ability to just create off the dribble. I think he can get that kind of runner in the lane or that stop and pop mid range shot whenever he wants because of his length.
Without a doubt. It looked like a big thing that people were talking about with Cooper Flagg was just kind of how fluid he was able to move. The defense was obviously on display. The matchups for the Duke team, when you've got Common Malawak, who was not on the same team as him, I thought that was kind of interesting with how they divide these teams up and who Cooper was able to play off of there, because it feels like throughout the entire season coming up, we're going to see Cooper playing with various kind of lineup mixtures because he is able to be so versatile on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in both halves of this game, he played at the four. But who knows how real that is because you needed a center. As much as Malik Brown is a center, you needed a center on each team. So we'll see how that goes. I can see him playing some at the three if like Mason Gillis is in and you have some
Yeah.
floor spacing at the four there. But I think we're going to see him at the four a lot. But either way, it's when you've got a team full of kind of interchangeable 6'6" to 6'9" guys, how much does what position you call them really matter?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's why I'm so excited to see him and Common on the same team at the same time. And I guess we'll get that coming up in some of these exhibition games that Duke is set to play. So we've got a couple of mailbag questions that we want to get into. Again, thanks to everyone who sent questions in, lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com or via X at LO_Blue Devils. And we'll start to answer those questions after this first time out here on today's episode. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Back on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, I'm JJ Jackson alongside Raul Clement from the Devil's Den podcast. There with 24/7 Sports, thedevilsden.com. Check out all their great work and listen to their shows wherever it is that you're able to get your podcast. So as we look at some of these questions that were sent in, again, to our Locked On Blue Devils mailbag over the weekend, I want to dive into some of them with you. A lot of people were talking about Cooper Flagg going into the year. We got to see him wearing the Duke jersey for the first time and playing there inside Cameron. And this question I thought was a good one. Who is expected to be the Robin to Cooper Flagg's Batman? I kind of like the analogy there. If we were to make Cooper Flagg the Batman of the Duke basketball team, who's running there as Robin?
I mean, based on what I saw the other night and what I've seen, from little clips over the offseason, I've got to go with Caleb Foster, the leading scorer from the countdown game. Another possibility would be Con Knipple. I think he could really fill it up at times, but give me Caleb just because of the extra year of experience.
I think Caleb is the right way to go. Again, we've talked about Caleb today so far already, but leading scorer for Countdown to Craziness, coming back as a sophomore, coming off of the injury, looking to be more of a scorer for this year's basketball team. And he's going to have the ball in his hands a whole lot. That's why I think you kind of can steer away from maybe those big players on the inside, like a Common Malawak or a Malik Brown or somebody like that. And we haven't seen Tyrese Proctor's scoring reach a consistent enough basis with what he's trying to do. But Caleb Foster, to me, feels like the right option. Con Knipple is definitely worth consideration, though. As you said, what is it about his game that you think he'd be kind of a good secondary option for this Duke team?
Well, the first and most obvious thing is he's an elite shooter. The mechanics are just great. He showed it off at CTC the other night. But I think he just got a level of craft to him as well. He's good at getting into the lane and kind of using change of speed to his advantage. He had one play the other night where he made like a push shot or a floater that was kind of just indicative of that. He kind of reminds me a little bit of either Jared McCain or Luke Kennard in that way, just the shiftiness.
Yeah, I love how he plays. I love his pace and speed, and we're going to be talking about that throughout the course of this entire season. And Con Knippel had some fun quotes after the game, after the fact, letting the record be known that it is pronounced Knippel. So hopefully we can all be in agreement on how to say his name moving forward as we go through the season. You talk shooting, and that was another good question that was sent in for our mailbag here today. Someone asks, how high is the ceiling for Duke basketball shooting this year? I think it's way up there. I mean, with what we saw the other night, everybody was knocking down shots from the outside, Raul.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling is best shooting team in the country. The other night, I think 43% of one team's attempts were from three and like 47% of the other teams. One team went 8 of 17. The other went 7 of 17. So great percentages there, and there were a couple banked in shots, but even if you take those away, I think that was just indicative of what we're going to see. Now, you're not going to see 43% at high volume like that every game, but when you look through the roster, I'm seeing 7 guys at least who, if you told me they shot 38% from three, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you look at the number of different players as well that were able to knock down 3-point shots. Isaiah Evans knocked down a couple. He had a really strong debut for Duke basketball. We already mentioned Caleb Foster's shots from the outside. Tyrese Proctor made a 3-pointer. Mason Gillis was able to make one. Sion James made a 3-point shot in that first game. Kamen Malawak banked one in. Even Neil Begovic was able to get in on the 3-point shooting, Raul. So, yeah, dude, I was kind of trying to throw out some figurative term in terms of how high that ceiling might be. But best in the country is the better way to put that, man, because I'm right there with you. And how much that would do for the Duke team if they were the best 3-point shooting team.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear to me just from what we've seen that they intend to play from the outside in. I don't think there's going to be a lot of post ups and there's not going to be a lot of stuff run through the post. Maybe you'll get an occasional Cooper Flagg post up, but Malawak is kind of, a cleanup guy. Same thing with Malik Brown. He had a couple putbacks in the game the other day. So I think that just lends itself to a high number of 3-point attempts. And I think the pace too is another thing that's going to allow Duke to get up some threes. They seem to be playing a lot faster than they have the last couple of years.
And again, all of this is with the caveat, we understand it's Duke playing Duke, right? We understand it's a blue-white game. We understand the next time we see the Blue Devils, it's not going to be the greatest of competitions when they take on Lincoln out of Pennsylvania. However, those big games are coming. Those big tests are coming for the Duke basketball team. And I think pace, to your point, is going to be a lot of what we see from this Duke basketball team, kind of blending that outside shooting with the opportunities to drive and get shots at the rim. I think that's the thing that when you look back to last year's team, Duke wants to be more effective. There weren't transition twos being taken often or at all from the likes of Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor. And then, if you can kind of get into the rim, the footage that we've seen from the Duke Blue Planet episodes put out so far and John Shire mic'd up, like it's definitely a focal point to throw the ball at the rim. There are big players like Malawak there on the interior that we got to feed and feature.
Yeah, I mean, he's huge. I was obviously at the game in person, and it's just striking when you're there how much bigger he is than everybody else. And I think he's going to get a ton of offensive rebounds and just putbacks and stuff just because of his length. He had that one impressive play where he was able to rebound the ball twice and just go up and dunk it in traffic without even a jump, really.
We love to see it. We want to see more of that as we go through the season from the big fella comment. All right, we've got a couple of more questions to answer here on the other side of the break. And when we come back, we answer those questions here on Locked On Blue Devils. We're back in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets easier for your favorite events. Game Time filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks lets the curation be so much easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater events. The all-in pricing where you toggle this feature and it's going to show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You got to turn on this feature, and it's a good one that you want to have. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and it's the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. With Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Game Time is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson. He's Raul Clement from the Devils Den podcast. Tell us about your show, if you will.
Yeah, we've been doing it for what? I think this is going to be 2022, 2023, 2024. So we're going in our fourth season of covering Duke, and it's been a lot of fun so far. Yeah. Gotten to be courtside at a few games on press row. That's been fun. Had some great guests. We had John Shire for the second time this summer. I've had some players, just people associated with the program. Yeah, so it's just been a blast doing it.
And people can find it wherever it is that they get their podcasts. Yep. Follow Raul on X at Raul Clement 1. They've also got Devils Den Pod 247. Josh Smith, Dustin Shue, really good crew that those guys have in conjunction there with the Devils Den. So go support their work. All right, so we've got just a few more questions to answer here today in the mailbag. A simple one once again. What's your favorite thing about Countdown to Craziness? I've been answering this one a whole lot recently, Raul, but it was sent back in after this past weekend. The intros continue to be the absolute best. I see footage once again of Stanley Borden stealing the show. And then also this year, the players kind of being on the high rise and then the big ramp coming down onto the floor. Like such a unique and creative look, man. I thought that was super, super cool.
Well, I was secretly scared for a second there, seeing them come down, that somebody in the back was going to fall and they just topple like dominoes, and there goes our season. But fortunately, no injuries. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. There was even some songs that I recognized as an old man, like Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson and things like that. So that was cool. And of course, yeah, Stanley Borden showed off his musicianship skills once again.
I don't want to speak for you, though, Ro. I mean, intros are kind of my favorite thing about Countdown. Is that the same for you, or what are you thinking?
I'm there for the scrimmages.
There you
and go. I think this relates maybe to an upcoming question we have or something, but I liked that the scrimmage was a little bit longer this year. The women's scrimmage was interesting. I guess they had a bunch of players injured, so they went against like I didn't know who they were, like a junior varsity men's team or something. But that was a good competitive game. And then of course, getting 2 10-minute halves for the men's game was nice.
Absolutely. I love getting to watch these guys compete and kind of giving you a preview of what it's going to look like. I know the women's basketball team relies a good bit on kind of those male practice players to go up against. I've talked before about my brother's years with the Lady Vols there when he went to Tennessee as a member of the men's practice squad. So really cool to see those guys getting a chance to get ready for the season. I think Carol Lawson's got a good one coming up as well. So you kind of teased it. I guess someone asks us, what's something Duke could do to make Countdown to Craziness a bit better? For you, is it making the scrimmage longer, or what are you thinking, Raul?
I think they've settled in on a good length. I really liked it this year. I've got 2 ideas.
Yeah.
Bring back the dunk contest.
I'm all for it, please.
And add a 3-point contest.
Yes. That's where I was going.
They don't both have to happen every year. Like if you have a team that just has no good dunkers, or, on the opposite end, you have like 2019 where nobody could shoot, but everybody could dunk. Then you have the dunk contest and no 3-point contest. But, it's just depending on the team. Like this year, I think you could have a great dunk contest, and you could have it lethal 3-point contest.
Without a doubt. Just some way to kind of get these guys doing basketball things that's not showing off too much or whatever, but you're able to kind of see these players do various things. Like if 2019 dunk contest with that team, like, man, That would have been unbelievable. And then to your point, I don't even know who would take the 3-point contest. I guess it depends on who's hot on any given night or in that moment. It's their first chance to kind of see that ball go through with the Cameron Crazies there supporting them as well. So one of the final questions we were asked in our mailbag today on this Mailbag Monday, and kind of recapping Countdown to Craziness, how many players will average double figures in scoring for Duke this season?
Yeah, that's always a hard one.
Very hard. Yeah.
By process of elimination, let's say.
It's always fun to throw this out here on October 7th because I know things can certainly change, but go ahead.
Yeah, and you start adding up the numbers and you realize you've got the team scoring 120 points per game and you're like,
which we would love.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so let's say Cooper Flagg for sure.
Yeah.
I think Caleb Foster's going to do it as well. So that's 2 right there. Give me Proctor. He's going to play a lot of minutes. He's going to get up a lot of threes. Shire at Duke men's basketball's media day said that he really wants Tyrese playing off the ball a lot and getting up a lot of threes. So if you're taking 6 or 7 threes a game, you're going to hit double figures probably. So that's 3 guys right there. And then let's say one of the other guards like Khan, Evans, Harris, whoever, Sion, maybe if you even consider him a guard.
Yeah.
But between one of those guys is going to get double figures. So that's 4.
I think 4 is the safe place to be. I'd love to be more aggressive and say 5 or 6, but then to your point, it's a good way to look at it, man. The more guys we throw out there, then you're like, wow, this Duke basketball team is going to be scoring a whole lot in a 40-minute basketball game. I hope that's the case. Cooper Flagg, I think, is the easy one. Caleb Foster, bound to have a big season. Points-wise, again, we talked about the emphasis of feeding Common Malawak on the inside. I'm curious what Common's numbers are going to end up at the end of the season.
Yeah, I just wonder how many minutes he's going to be capable of playing, because with freshman bigs, you usually see
them get in shape.
Yeah, in that 20 to 30 minute range because their stamina isn't great and they tend to foul a lot. I mean, Lively probably played 20, 25 minutes. Same thing with Mark Williams. I think he was closer to like 28, but let's say he's in that range. I think maybe like 8 points, 7 rebounds, block and a half, 2 blocks or something like that. I think he's going to stuff the stat sheet very quickly.
Which I'm excited to see him play and debut as well. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So good to see CTC come and go. Glad that we can now look forward to basketball competition against other teams that we're able to watch and not just kind of the blue and white festivities that we've seen. Raul, always great to see you, man. Really do appreciate the time. One more time, if you will, kind of promote your work and how people can get involved. Maybe preview some things that you guys have coming up this season. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so the Devil's Den podcast on all your streaming apps. You can also find it on the website at thedevilsden.com. In terms of what we've got coming up, we're going to do a CTC reaction just like we're doing now. That'll be out tomorrow. We just did a podcast with Travis Branham from 247 Sports about recruiting. So if you're big into recruiting, you can hear all about the Boozers and Nate Mint and Shelton Henderson and all that. And then we're probably going to do a season preview at some point, maybe get somebody from the media in and just kind of give some predictions and what matchups we're most interested in and things like that.
Go check it all out, Devil's Den Podcast. Raul, thanks for being here today. We'll do this again sometime soon, okay?
Yep, appreciate it.
All right, that's Raul Clement joining us here on today's show, and that's going to do it for Locked On Blue Devils here today. Really fun episode. Let us know in the comments down below what you think about our mailbag. Who stood out to you in CTC this season? We're back at it again tomorrow. More reaction. Got to talk, unfortunately, a little bit about the Duke football team dropping the game against Georgia Tech over the weekend and so much more. Locked On Blue Devils, thank you so much for making us your first listen and first watch each and every day. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.